Oh, I know what I can do. How about that? That's a little better, eh? Oh, I am recording. Whoops. Hey everyone, I've had a break. I'm kind of skipping a couple of the classes. It's been very, I don't think overwhelming is the word, but just a lot of information coming at me at once. I am sitting on the kind of rooftop pool area here. I'll see if I can. So it's kind of cool. I got the city on one side and a lovely pool on the other. So, although it was 80 degrees for the past 2 days, and now it is in the 50s. So, not gonna lie, I'm a little chilly. So I also have a new phone, so I'm not sure the quality of the sound, and it's a little windy out here, so I apologize if you can't hear me very well. So yes, and the table shakes, and the table is shaky. Yesterday was the talk with Dr. Patterson from UC Davis about FIP. Gotta try to stay warm. This is a little chilly out here. And as promised, I want to tell you guys some of this stuff some of you might know. I just thought it was a lot of interesting, good information about FIP, period. And then I'll tell you about the 2 drugs that they did those studies on, because he did tell us a bit about that as well. So, some interesting facts about FIP. I think we all know it's fecal to oral. The coronavirus is shed in the stool, so shared litter boxes, walking through, grooming themselves, things like that is how the coronavirus is transmitted. And an interesting fact he said was 60% of all cats are shedding the coronavirus. So whether they're actual FIP positive, actually showing any symptoms, 60% of cats are shedding the corona. So that's kind of an interesting idea and concept about how prevalent the coronavirus is versus how prevalent FIP is. So, and I got numbers on those too. So another interesting stat that he said was that 20% of cats that contract the coronavirus, 20% of those mutate the virus. So FIP, is a mutation of the virus, but 20% of all cats that get it are mutating the virus. But 0.3 to 1.3% of those cats are actually FIP. So it's an interesting concept that it is a very common virus that gets mutated, but it's just the small percentage that turns it into FIP. Or it mutates to what we call FIP. Another interesting thing he mentioned was how they respond to the actual virus itself. You can have a cell-mediated response versus an antibody-mediated response. And those cats that respond cellularly can overcome it. Those who respond antibody, I'm making up words now, an antibody-mediated response, those are the ones that get sick from the FIP. Again, this is just interesting information. I don't think, there's still nothing that we can do with our cats at home to know who's going to respond which way. But it's interesting to hear that there's an idea that cats get it, but can actually overcome it on their own. He mentioned that the ones that overcome it on their own, we don't realize they're sick. They just get over it on their own. We never see them at the vet, or they might have some soft stool or something, but they get over it. Getting crowded at the pool. Hold on. So again, it is like 50 degrees out here, but the pool is kind of heated. So there's a few people in the pool right now. So if you hear some yelling, I apologize. And now we got the church bells. He said kittens normally become infected with corona about 9 weeks of age. And he contributed that to being winged. Whoa, stay down. So he also mentioned there are a lot of factors. So the idea that there's a genetic component that, why do some cats get sick from corona? Why do some cats mutate it? All this stuff. He said there's a ton of factors. There is a genetic component, but not in the way we think of genetics as like recessive and dominant genes. It's more of, he said, kind of an inbreeding thing. So you're more likely to see it in cats, two dominant cats that don't have the gene. You're more likely to see because they're more likely to be inbred as opposed to ones that don't. I don't fully understand that. I'm not going to lie. But it's more of an inbreeding than genetics. It's than like genes. I'm not a scientist. This dude's too smart for me. I'm going to be honest. Stress is a factor, just being in a shelter. Obviously that's stressful. Going to a new home is stressful, even though it's end up being a better stress. It is stress. Diet change, being spayed, being vaccinated, all these things are technically stress. So all those things can make the coronavirus kind of flare up and cause disease. He also had some graphs and charts about the shedding. The antibodies can be shed, can shed for months. So they can actually shed the coronavirus for months after the infection. And the antibodies kind of start to dwindle, as they get over the infection, the antibodies kind of dip down, but they can still be shedding the coronavirus. So that's why we see a lot of this cyclical, like diarrhea, got better, came back, because they're still shedding the virus. They can contract it. I know it is. I'm down here talking to myself on the floor because it's the only angle I can get. That was Mom. So again, the question of, is FIP contagious? And he said the bottom line is no. Every cat mutates the virus into its own kind of a thing. So corona itself is contagious. FIP is not considered contagious. We're to the cold point where my nose is starting to drip a little bit. Okay, then he went into wet versus dry. It's possible for cats to have dry at a very low level for a long time, and we don't realize it. So the dry FIP basically causes lesions in internal organs. And at first, they probably don't show any symptoms until it gets bad enough. The dry can also turn into wet. So some of these kitties with wet FIP in their abdomen, that's the first time you really notice that they're sick. They could have been having dry FIP for a while. And just, so cats are great at hiding these things. So you don't really notice it until the wet kind of pops up. And it's pretty bad at that point, unfortunately. Okay, diagnostics. He was a big advocate of FIP being easy to diagnose, and that veterinary community is just really afraid to say FIP. Because FIP is, kind of like writing a death sentence right now. So if the labs, are typical, what we know, the FIP labs, if there's ever coronavirus detected in any of the effusion, whether it's abdominal or thoracic, if there's any coronavirus detected, it's FIP. The coronavirus itself kind of chills out in the colon. So there's no reason a coronavirus should be in fluid of anywhere else unless it has progressed to FIP. So, titers. If you want more detail, I will put an email down below. Please email me. There were a lot of little details that are just going to be kind of strenuous to talk about right now, but I will definitely share if, for anyone who wants, or if you have questions, I'll try to answer, or I can refer you to something from him. And he made an interesting comment that most which, I mean, take this with a grain of salt, everybody. This was a really interesting, kind of rough research a veterinarian. They have a different mentality than your vet. Brilliant mind. He said FIP technically is fatal, but most cats don't die of FIP, they die of euthanasia, which, well, duh, But his point was, a lot of times we don't see what the progression is. He did make a subtle comment that maybe some of these cats could recover. I don't know what I think about that, to be honest with you. I'm a big fan of being realistic, and we all know our cats, so how much are you willing to put them through? Anyway, totally besides the point. He doesn't think any of the treatments we're currently using do anything. He doesn't think PAI is doing anything. He doesn't think interferon does anything. Steroids only help symptoms, doesn't actually cure or help the disease, which, is kind of, I've heard that for a while too. He said to compare to humans, FIP is most like TB, tuberculosis. So if you want to compare it to something, I know nothing about TB. Okay, so part 2 of the talk was all about the studies and medications, and he did go into the whole science of the drugs and how it interacts and what and all that good stuff. So he looked at a lot of the antiviral drugs used in humans, including an FIV. He looked at HIV medications. Corona doesn't go into the chromosomes. It does basically inject its RNA into cells and kind of tricks the body into replicating its cells. So somewhat like HIV in that aspect. Basically down to the science, they looked at each little parts, like how the RNA was injected into cells and, the chain of commands, how it all worked, to try to figure out what drug, where we could put something to stop this. So the first drug they looked at, PIGC376. This was the twice-a-day injectable that was, whoa, calm down. Jesus Christ, people. Twice-a-day injectable, manufactured at Kansas State. Kansas State, I'm pretty sure. I'll look in my notes. Manufactured at a university. Really difficult to make. Hence the reason their study was tiny. They could only get enough medication to treat 20 cats. They took a wide variety of ages, of type of FIP. They tried to get enough breeds. They tried to get it all over the country, kind of, just in case there are different strains in different places. And what happened? So, with this drug, the wet FIP seemed to respond better than the dry. The majority of the cats that survived or still alive had the wet form. I believe all the dry ended up passing away. It did prolong. They tested, how long to give it. There were a lot of factors on how long to treat these things, and they think that may have been part of the problem with the dry. They didn't go long enough. And if the virus ever went neurological, it was not good. It did not work against the blood-brain barrier, which is a really tough thing to get through. So if FIP's gone neurological, unfortunately, it's kind of too late. So the wet seemed to respond better than the dry when treated for 12 weeks. So they kind of found this magic number to treat for. There were a few relapses that they retreated. A lot of them responded to the treatment. Bottom line, right now, as of today, 6 of the 20 are still alive. So better numbers than we're used to. Obviously still not a cure or more of a treatment with the possibility of remission. The side effects, it was a twice-a-day injection. It does sting. It did cause dermal necrosis, so kind of dead spots on the skin in essence. But it also caused pretty severe dental defect. In kittens, they either didn't develop their adult teeth, they retained their baby teeth, their deciduous teeth became retained, And if they did develop their adult teeth, they were really deformed. So this could be a problem if that meant the cat didn't eat well or, had future problems. So kind of a toss-up on that one, right? So that was the first drug they tested a few years back. The one they just finished up, which I think most of us know more about or heard stories about, is the NI-EVO 984. And this is actually an Ebola drug. So because it is currently used on the human health side, kind of not a common drug. I don't think it's gone through all the testing yet, but it was easier for the university to get. So it was a once-a-day injection, again for 12 weeks. So, and this time they tested the cat's labs and stopped the medication didn't stop the medication until that was completely normal, which tended to be around 12 weeks. The side effects of this one was it stung, and there was a little dermal sloughing, so a little irritation to the skin. So side effects were a lot better than that first drug. So they tested 30 cats this time. Same thing, wide variety of everything, age, types, etc., etc. 4 of the 30 died relatively quickly. Whether the disease had progressed too long, who knows? But 4 of them within about the first week had passed away. A couple of them had gone neurological, he said, of those 4. There was one cat that seemed to be resistant, and one that relapsed with neurological disease. So those were the 4 that didn't seem. So now the rest, there were more relapses, but they responded to retreatment. So of the cats, okay, about 14 right now are in remission. They consider it in remission, untreated, everything looks great. 9 of them appear to be going into remission. They are still getting treatments, but they expect those 9 to also go into remission. So bottom line, huge success with this one. It's still not recommended for neurological FIP, again, but he thinks that potentially it could. I'm not sure why, how, what, all that good stuff, but he thinks there's hope for it. Big hang up for this, for all of us, is getting the drug. Like, okay, we know this works, let us have it. Me having a cat with FIP, I want it, give it to me. So he did discuss that. This is all very new, and there's a lot of crap that has to happen. They've got to decide who's going to make money off this drug, and once they decide who gets the rights of the drug, then they go to the FDA. At that point, they'll probably need more testing, which in my mind kind of goes, wait, can I get into that? And they have to pass all the FDA regulations. So he said, realistically, we're looking at about 2 years before any hope that the drug gets down to us. Again, it's a once-a-day sub-Q injection for 12 weeks. My concern is this going to be ridiculously expensive? Is it going to be reasonable for us to be able to do to our cats? And is it going to come too late for most of us, obviously? But I think the bottom line is there is hope out there. This is sounding really promising. I hope we can get it going kind of soon. Would be nice, wouldn't it? Yeah, so there was a lot. It was hard for me to kind of focus because obviously he's talking about my cat up there, like I was trying to absorb it all, not get too overwhelmed, and to write it all down for you guys. So I hope that made some sort of sense to you. If not, you are more than welcome. Like I said, I will include an email down below, and you are more than welcome. Shoot me an email. Shoot me an email, and I will try. I'm in Denver right now, so I may not get back to you right away, but I will do my best to help you guys, to share with you guys what I learned. So thank you so much for listening. I am sitting on a cold concrete right now, so I'm going to go inside, and this coffee is now iced coffee, so I'm going to go get more coffee But thank you guys. I'm having a blast here in Denver. Lots to learn. And I will see you guys later.